Welcome to How Brands Are Built, where branding professionals get into the details of what they do and how they do it. I'm your host, Rob Meyerson. Thanks for listening. This episode of How Brands Are Built is brought to you by Tracksuit. Want always-on brand metrics to deliver value to stakeholders? Tracksuit is a beautiful, affordable, and always-on brand tracking tool that helps consumer marketers and agencies answer the question, is what we're doing working? Check them out at gotracksuit.com. On today's episode, Jacob Cass. Jacob is a designer, brand strategist, educator, and coach. He founded Just Creative, which is a leading branding and design consultancy that doubles as an industry-leading blog and creative community. Jacob's past clients include Disney, Nintendo, Nike, and Red Bull. Earlier this year, Jacob hosted the Brand Builders Summit, a virtual event that drew over 20,000 attendees from around the world. I was a speaker at the event and was blown away by what Jacob put together. For a few weeks leading up to the August event, it felt like the marketing for Brand Builders Summit was everywhere. So that's what I wanted to talk to Jacob about. What led him to create this event and how he pulled it off. Here's our conversation. Jacob Cass, thank you so much for joining me on How Brands Are Built. It's good to see you.
Hey, Rob. Good to see you. Likewise.
So I want to talk about Brand Builders Summit. I mean, there's so much we could talk about. You're an experienced brand builder, designer. You do all kinds of things. People who follow you know that you like to kind of dip your toe into all kinds of different activities. But today I want to focus on this Brand Builders Summit, one of the many things that you decided to try your hand at. And I guess just to get us started, can you tell me a little bit about where the idea came from? What made you want to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. I do consider myself a bit of a creative drifter, as you've kind of touched on there. Kind of go in many different arenas. So it could be like digital products, it could be summits, it could be, creating a side company, or like I dip my toes in many different things. But at the cross section of all that is brand, but also design, strategy, and marketing. And as that cross section that was most interesting for me. And that kind of segues into how this summit came to be. And just for context, what this summit was, it was a 4-day semi-live event for brand builders. So designers, strategists, brand designers, logo designers, even web designers were a part of this, freelancers, even marketers. And it was 4 days of with 24 speakers with pre-recorded presentations, but also 24 live Q&A sessions. And then we had 3 live panel sessions, and we had 3 live workshop sessions as well. So that was the event. We had a few live networking sessions and co-working sessions as well. So
yeah, and
it was a very immersive experience.
I should mention full disclosure. I was one of those speakers. So I would have heard about this anyway. And one of the things I want to talk about is the promotion for this event was nuts. Like I was seeing it everywhere. And I even talked to some other people in the branding community just saying like, it's so pervasive online. Everyone is aware of this, which I'm sure resulted in a huge turnout. And I want to get to that as well. But sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. Back to just sort of how you thought of it. And now that you're talking about how you structured it, that's kind of my next question is where did that structure like
I wanted to talk about what it was just before I got to like how it came to be, because there's a bit of context there. So, now that you understand what the summit was and the structure and all of that, how it came to be was because I'd spoken at many summits before. I think my first one was maybe 2020 or 2021, something around then. And then after that, it just seemed like to be a snowball effect. Like you get on one leg and then you get invited to other summits. So it kind of snowballed from there. And the summit I went to back then, it was called something like Simply Profitable Designer Summit. And I was like, what is this summit model? I had no idea what it was, but I joined and marketed based on their marketing schedule. And my marketing brought in 60% of their revenue through email marketing. So
wow.
It was a major success. And I've only just learned of this. I didn't realize like such a
They didn't tell you at the time.
No, not 60%. They said it was like good and I saw the affiliate revenue come in and I knew it was good, but not that much. Anyway, The point is that I knew affiliate marketing well. I've run a blog and I know SEO and psychology and all of that when it comes to marketing. And that's why it was successful. I also had an email list as well that I built up over time. So those are the prerequisites. So that's how I came to know about summits. And then I got attracted to other summits. I spoke at those summits. And eventually I'm like, well, when am I going to do my own summit? And then I had other people asking me like, when are you going to do your own summit? And Funnily enough, I talked to Matt Davies, my co-host for the Just Branding podcast, as you know, and we also talked about doing our own conference or live event as well. And he's in UK, I'm in Australia, so like the chances of that happening is pretty slim. We're not going to say never. We do talk about it, but there's all these like inklings of like, okay, you've been at a summit, you spoke at summits, people asking you, and maybe with the co-host as well. But then the real linchpin or the thing that really got me to do this was when my blog and SEO crashed with Google.
Oh, so, wow. I remember seeing you post about that online.
So a side hustle of mine, we talked about this creative drifting thing, is the blogging and affiliate marketing. So I had a lot of content. I had a team of about 10 people writing content, and we had about 70 million people come to our site over like a decade. And that was through all the content. And that went really, really well up until a couple of years ago. And Google changed their algorithms. We pretty much dived. We lost 90% of our traffic. We lost a huge portion of our revenue, had to let go of the team and everything.
Oh my God. And that's not just, that's not just you, right? This algorithm change affected all kinds of people doing.
Algorithm changes, yeah. So pretty much like I was an affiliate driven site, and pretty much all mid-tier to small business, small to mid-size affiliate-based websites vanished from Google.
Yeah,
just got pushed back so far. Google ended up pushing sites like Reddit, LinkedIn, like weird forums that you had never heard of before. They got pushed to the top, and all affiliate sites got pushed down. So we lost our revenue. Just kept getting worse and worse. And like I tried to reinvest for the first like 6 to 12 months. It didn't work, and no one really recovered, any small to mid-sized sites. So that was a big bummer, but I tried to fix it, didn't work. But consequently, in that moment, I lost a lot of leads because I had an organic search-driven strategy.
Yeah.
And I started losing clients leads, I should say. And that was drying up. And I'm like, oh, okay, this may be the time to do a summit. I was like, this was back in like January, February 2024. Like, this is the time, I'm going to do it. Let's just pull the trigger. I bought a program called Summit in the Box, which we'll get into, which is basically a program to teach you how to run summits or live events. And I followed that program like, yes, I'm going to do it in February. And then I landed 3 clients in 1 week. I'm like, of course. Yeah. So that got pushed out. I'm like, okay, well, I can't do this now. I'm going to work on these client projects. I pushed the summit date out to August, which I'm very thankful I did, because it meant I could promote the event longer. I could learn how to run an event better by following that program. There's a ton of videos and resources to watch on that. So really immerse myself in how to actually run a summit. And it just made for a better experience. So that's how this whole summit thing came to be. It was just the right time, the experience, the cross-section of, brand design, marketing, and just a passion for facilitating, conversations with people as well. It's just one of my passions, running the podcast as well. So it's just like all these different bits coming together. It's like a lot of my skill sets, a lot of my passions, and the right timing. That's how the summit came to be. I know this is a longer question, answer than you expected, but it does give context. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good background. So this Summit in a Box thing, that the person who runs that, you told me before we started recording, was the person who ran that first summit you mentioned, right? Where you got 60%, you brought in 60% of the revenue or of the attendees.
Yes, exactly. So her name is Krista Miller. She runs Summit in a Box, amazing program. She has a podcast, and if you want to learn more about summits, like that's the resource I'd recommend.
Yeah. So we'll provide a link to. So Jacob is going to be on that podcast, and he'll go into more detail about his summit on that podcast. So if you really want to get into the weeds about Summit in a Box and how he implemented it in sort of very specific ways, I'll provide a link to that podcast and you can listen to that. So the way that you structured this, though, was really interesting to me as a speaker. So it was, you said some of this already, but it was free for attendees. Speakers, at least I didn't get paid, but we had an affiliate link. So we were encouraged to promote it. And then people who did pay, so I should revise what I said. It was free, but you could choose to upgrade for a certain amount to get all kinds of goodies, to get downloadable talks, things like that. And so through my affiliate link, if people chose to upgrade, I would get a portion of that. And so all of your speakers presumably got paid a little bit at least, or some of them quite a bit through those affiliate links. But it's still free for anyone who wants to attend, which is great for a global virtual summit. Well, I guess by nature, any virtual summit, anyone in the world can attend. And so you're dealing with people with all different sort of levels of income, students all the way up to experienced professionals. So making it free and it's so much more accessible. Is that all part of the Summit in a Box model, or is some of that your sort of customization of that model?
There are many different models when it comes to summits. It is generally a free model, and that is recommended because you get more people attending. I think we had 156 countries represented, and like you said, is across the board, students to decade-long professionals, veterans, and the model is, yes, it is. This is why I love the model so much. It is free, so everyone can access it for 48 hours. 24 to 48 hours, and maybe next year I'll be doing it longer based on the feedback I've heard. The benefits for the speakers as well is not just the affiliate side of things, but it's also the exposure to the list. So what you mentioned there, the upgrade, so we called it the Power Pass. It got you $6,000 worth of value for $97. So it was like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Every speaker contributed to the Power Pass bundle, and then you also get the replays and access to some of the live panels and live events as well. So that was the no-brainer offer. And that's how the model works, right? Because it's such a no-brainer offer, it converts very, very well. And the people that bring in, the speakers that bring in the attendees, they get a cut. But the interesting point is that each speaker can set up a landing page where to access the download or the resource, the attendee must enter their email. So it is a great email list builder for speakers. So some of the speakers ended up getting about 4,000 or 5,000 new email subscribers because of the event,
which is huge.
And that is infinitely more valuable than getting a lump sum, because then you have 4,000 extra new leads that you can sell to in the future. So there's a lot more benefits to just the monetary side of things. It's like list building, it's awareness, and longer term benefits as well. And that's why I love it.
It's a great model.
Obviously for the summit hosts, you get the relationships, you get the email list building, you can market to the people afterwards. I haven't done that yet, but there's so many opportunities that can come from it as well. And that's why I love the model. It's super competitive now though. Since 2001, there's so many summits. So you really have to stand out. And that kind of brings us to the next point of like, how is your summit different? And we can kind of get into structure and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, you also chose to do 4 days, and I think you said 6 speakers per day. So talk a little bit about why you made some of those structural decisions that you made. I mean, I'm sure there's so many different variables. You could have done this so many different ways. And then even once you choose the structure, you then have to choose who to get on the roster of speakers and things like that. So what was some of that process like?
So before I get into the process, I'll talk about the competition, right? So the summit scene has blown up every month. There's a new summit, and often you'll see the same speakers and the same topics, and I didn't want to do that. So rather than just focus on like a design summit, I wanted to bring in some of the things I find most integral to the growth of a business or a brand. So that's brand strategy, brand design, marketing, and business. It's those cross-section of things that I believe can really boost a brand and boost a person's career if you know all those things. So that's how I structured the 4-day event, was to have 6 speakers on brand strategy, 6 speakers on design, 6 speakers on marketing and growth, and then 6 speakers on the business side of things. Funnily enough, the least sexy topic of business is always like the most, people don't always attend to that, but I also think it's the most important.
It's the one they should be listening to the most.
It should
probably.
be, exactly.
It's like the vegetables they don't want to eat along with their
totally.
Their meal. Yeah,
exactly. So I wanted to have it there. It's not necessarily like the attractor. The like design definitely is the attraction, at least from the audience and stats I've got. But I think what made this successful is the integration of strategy and design, because designers are feeling the pinch, right? AI, online tools, and just the commoditization of design in general. So people are wanting to learn more about strategy. So I think there was the position of the summit was focused on brand and not design. And then that allowed us to break it down into, brand design and strategy, and then business, or whatever way we want to slice it. So I think that's a big part of what made it so successful, is like the unique positioning and the cross-section of strategy and design. But also, we can get into the marketing a bit later, just the pre-buzz and the relationships with speakers as well are a big part of making the event a success. So if you ever wanting to run a summit or a live event of your own, the biggest tip I can give is pre-buzz, pre-planning, and relationships with your speakers. That's the prerequisites.
Well, that's a good segue into just what it was like putting this together. So you've made the decision, you've done the summit in a box thing, you're starting to learn as much as you can about how to do it. I guess just tell me a little bit about what it was like. I remember some of your posts online about, maybe feeling like you had bitten off more than you could chew, and just the incredible amount of work that
There's
went
so
into
much
this.
Self-doubt, man, like so much self-doubt. And some of my goals I kind of laugh at now, but my goal was to get 5,000 attendees as a stretch goal, and smash that out of the
triple that or something.
23,000.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was blown away. I really was. And it blew up. And I was like, you're part of the Slack channel, but I'm like, oh, we've got 1,000 attendees. Now it's at 2,000 and 5,000. I'm like, guys, it's up to 10,000. I'm like, what is happening? And then
keeps going up. Yeah.
Yeah, the speakers started sharing more, and that excitement and the momentum got building, and it's like 15 grand. Then it got to like 19 grand. I'm like, no, we have to get to 20. Come on, it just slowed down. I was like, come on, let's do one more push. We can get this to 20, and then somehow it got to 23. So wow. It was crazy. It was like it snowballed really a lot at the end, but that would definitely not have happened if it wasn't for the pre-buzz beforehand, and the clear communication with speakers, and the promotional graphics, and there's a lot of moving pieces which we can get into, like, at least on a high level.
But since it's a virtual event, I mean, if this was an in-person event, you would have had a limited number of tickets, but like if something like this had happened, you would have been kind of screwed, because you would have had to go rent an entirely different venue. Since it's virtual, it seems like that shouldn't make things harder necessarily, right? Although I guess it's all
scalable. The only thing that's not scalable is the customer support. However, I custom trained an AI chatbot for our community, and that was a huge time saver for our members. So like time conversions, FAQs, where to find things. It was like correct 80% of the time, and the times it wasn't correct, you could retrain the answer. So it was very easy to create this custom chatbot. And when I say easy, it's like I copy pasted my landing page and my schedule page into a text field box and click generate, and it trained it just on that. And then I monitored the questions coming in and gave the right answers to the questions, and then it just retrained itself. So it was incredible. That tool was called Chatbase, by the way. It's like $20. Not affiliated in any way, but it was incredible, and I'm going to use them again.
Yeah, so that's coming after the jobs of the person or people that you would have hired for customer support, and it's the same technology that your design attendees are afraid of coming after their jobs.
Yeah. But some of the feedback I did have was that I moderated all the live Q&As, so maybe next time I'll have someone else. I did hire someone as a VA for email support. That was fine until Thrivecart, our software solution, crashed on the second day, unrelated to us. But They did a major update to their platform on that particular day, and it crashed our part of our portal in Thrivecart. So we had literally hundreds of emails, people like attendees saying we can't access it, we can't download it. So that was very distracting. I had to put out that fire during the live event, but it worked out, and I emailed everyone and communicated the problem, and it was outside of our control, and that was fine. But yeah, the email support is important, and scaling with the attendees, but the chatbot, was definitely scalable.
Great. Yeah, I wanted to know about any specific tools that you found that helped you. Is there anything else that sort of at that tool and tactics level that you couldn't do without, that you learned about because of this? Today's episode is brought to you by Tracksuit. Tracksuit is a beautiful, affordable, and always-on brand tracking tool that helps consumer marketers and agencies answer the question, is what we're doing working? A tool like Tracksuit helps track the impact of your marketing and find out the unique selling points your brand has over its competitors. Tracksuit is fast becoming the common language for businesses in competitive categories to measure and communicate the value of brand building. Thanks to our friends at Tracksuit for sponsoring this episode. Check it out at gotracksuit.com.
Yeah, so I have a whole list of the tech stack if you want me to roll through it.
Well, sure. Give me some highlights, but then we'll just post that in the show notes if you don't mind sending it.
Okay. I literally have a whole SWAT thing, but I'll talk about the experience. So like I hosted on Circle, live videos, calls were on Circle, the live chat was on Circle. The calendar tool I used was Out-Event. I use a quiz tool called Interact. So that helps people choose which sessions to attend.
Okay.
For surveys, I use Formaloo. Merch, I use Etsy and Printful. Podcast recording, Riverside. Podcast hosting, Spotify. Automations, I use Zapier. AI chatbot, I use Chatbase. For all of my HR sort of stuff, I used Fiverr. I had a motion graphics designer. I had an audio branding team, Drop Music Branding. Shout out to them. They did a great job.
Yeah. Friends of the pod.
I hired a Facebook ad specialist to help with the ads. That got a 2x return, which I was very happy about. It was risky, but it turned out. For the website, WordPress had about 10 different plugins hosted on Cloudways. The website builder was Elementor. The cart software, I used Thrivecart. There was a countdown timer called Deadline Funnel, which was integral to the summit. That gives a bit of urgency for people converting, and it allows you to turn on and off the pages when they expire. So this is important for summits because there is a deadline of how long people can watch for. Yeah. So 24 to 48 hours is the general guide for how long someone can access the presentations for free. After that date, you expire it.
Is that a WordPress plugin or something, or how does that integrate with the software for the? I think it's a JavaScript code you can put into a website. Okay.
It works on WordPress and other channels, but this is very integral for a summit because it handles all the times and the countdown timers and everything. So there's some tech behind it that is very useful for summits.
So you listed all the tech, but you also listed a few people that you hired. So it sounds like you did have at least sort of a small team of specialists that you built just for this summit. I guess I'm curious, and you did, that's similar to what you did with your blog, right? You had a team of 10. How do you go about finding those people? Do you have a methodology to finding people that you trust or that you are willing to?
So I always look for referrals and recommendations first. So Facebook ads. I looked at people that did Facebook ads, but then I went granular. I'm like, I want someone who does Facebook ads for summits. Mm-hmm. So I found someone that knew that, and they were blessing. Like Facebook ads are hard. There's so many moving pieces and approvals and like the budgets and everything. She explained it in videos and everything. It took a while to understand, and it's so risky.
Yeah, Google Ads is not. I find not super easy either. It's easy to set up, but then if you actually want to be good at it, it's hard.
Totally. To answer your questions, like referrals, if I didn't have someone, then I'd go on Fiverr, for example. I look at the value, so their ratings, their experience, where they're based, their communication skills, and so forth. And they help. I found a developer there, and I'm going to use them for the next time. And then I use my my current podcast editor, who also doubles as a video editor to do like the motion graphics. So it was just like prior relationships. And then I use a tool like Fiverr or Upwork to find other people, which I didn't really do that. But to be honest, like all of those things are very niche jobs that were like only for, a few hours of work.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, like I did myself stupidly. Yeah, I definitely delegate more, but now that I know how to do things, I've done it once, I know where I can delegate and,
right.
Yeah.
Is it a little bit of you have to do it yourself in order to understand how to
Yeah, and that's how I feel
not
for
do
the
it the
first
next
time.
time? Yeah. Anything else?
I didn't even go through half that tech, but there was a few other ones that are really integral.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That I do want to
hit the high
mention.
notes. Yeah.
Yeah. So Thrivecart was where I hosted the learning, like the course and the bonuses and downloads. And that was like where I hosted content, but also the e-commerce side of things. So that was all integral to it. And it hooked up with ConvertKit. Now it's called Kit. That was what I used for the forms and the pop-ups and the email marketing. I use Hotjar for behavior analytics for the website and Google Analytics for measuring the traffic and everything. And I use this an exit intent pop-up tool called Opt-in Monster. So if someone was trying to leave the page, something would pop up saying, "Hey, don't forget your free ticket," and that caught a lot of people. So there's little tools like that can really change. I use a social proof tool called Trust Pulse, which basically in the bottom left corner of your screen, it's like 15,000 people have registered to this summit. Don't miss out, kind of thing. So it's like it gives this like social proof to it. And on the upsell page, the VIP bundle, you would say, someone just bought this, or someone in your location just bought this, or 1,000 people have bought this, whatever it is, and just gives that social proof.
Yeah.
Ads, I use Meta, email G Suite. I use an email tracking tool called Mail Suite. So the problem with summits, not problem, but the challenge with summits is communication. There was so many emails sent between speakers and everything, and it's like literally an admin job. So having a tool that tracks emails to know when things are opened or not opened was very handy. When people have clicked on links to know that was super easy, super handy. For speaker management, I use Airtable. So it's like a database. So you could manage, where you were with contracts and communications and everything.
I think that was
dead in the water without that.
Yeah, I think that was one of the pictures you posted online. One of those what have I done to myself pictures with the massive Airtable spreadsheet thing.
Yeah, exactly. But that's crucial. So if you're not organized, like you need to be organized. It's everything. And GIFs, I use Printful and Moo and Sticker Mule. And there's probably some more of it. That's a lot of it. So there's a lot of moving pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. And did you hear about a lot of that tech stack through, again, Summit in the Box, or was a lot of this sort of your own research?
Some of it was new to me, like Deadline Funnel. I had never heard of that. And so that was a huge learning curve. Thrivecart I'd never used before.
Right.
And how that integrates.
That was great. Thrivecart is what I interacted with a lot as a speaker and for all the affiliate link stuff. And that worked very smoothly.
Yeah, it worked really well, but it was just learning how to set it up and how to integrate it with ConvertKit and tags and so forth. That was all a learning curve. Made many mistakes. I sent out multiple emails to people like saying to upgrade when they'd already upgraded and stuff like that to a small segment when I was testing. Thankfully, only a few hundred people got that versus thousands. So I definitely did something right there, like with my testing, which was recommended highly. I'm very glad I did that. But yeah. What was your question?
Well, just with all everything that went right and went wrong, and all the tech that you had to use, and when you think about potentially a Brand Builder Summit 2025, are you excited, or are you more sort of like, oh God, here we go again? Is it daunting, or is it?
Funny you say that, because after the summit, it was very draining, right? I did it all in the US time zone. I'm in Sydney. So I was doing this summit from 11 a.m. to like 7, 8 a.m. in the morning. So it was a complete opposite, and it was very draining. But the week after the summit, we had some time off in the city. We booked a hotel, and, we had a couples massage and everything, my wife and I. And in that massage, all I could think about was the 2025 summit. So Literally, I'm
Way
meant
to
to be
relax,
relaxing. And I,
Jacob.
I
Yeah.
planned out every single detail in my head in 1 hour. So like the whole position, the tagline, how it's going to be different, like the new theme, like everything just in that hour. And like that next week, I pretty much put everything down. I designed the whole website for the
Oh my
2025
God.
summit. So I have all the new logo, the name, positioning, the messaging. It's all done and designed. Just the homepage. That's the easy, fun part.
Yeah.
The rest is the hard part.
In some
So
ways, I feel like you really got your money's worth for that massage. In other ways, I feel like you need to go back for another hour because you weren't even enjoying it. You were just thinking about
yeah.
the summit. All right. So there
Wife's
will be.
just snoring there. I'm like,
Yeah,
just
right.
brains in overload. But that's when good ideas happen, like the
Yeah.
cliche of like
Yeah. The
driving.
second you kind of tune out. Yeah. So there definitely will be a 2025. Can you give us any hints?
I don't want to say definitely. Like I have big,
sure.
I have big plans. Like maybe those clients will drop at the same time, like last time. But the feedback I got from everything was so impactful. Like it was so moving to hear. Like people email me saying you changed my life, and like it was life changing. And we put out a survey after the end of the event, and there was about 150 people that responded. 100% of them said they would recommend the summit to a friend. So that was an amazing stat. And 9.7 out of 10 was the rating they gave for the overall summit experience.
Amazing. Yeah,
so it was great. Great feedback. Obviously, that was like the very engaged people filling in surveys. But it was a good sign that we did things right and the experience was on point. Quality speakers, presentations, like everything. So it went smoothly. But
Great.
I literally have pages of notes of how to improve next time based on feedback and reflection and so forth.
Yeah. I was going to say one of the really cool things you did was you, and I saw you did this for lots of people, you cut out positive feedback that people gave on individual presentations and then mailed that to us. It was like a little envelope of confetti came out and it was all real comments that people have left. That was a very cool little gift. And
a little memorable moment. It's like a big smile on your face.
A little ego boost. And it was great.
I love you, Rob.
It's not, I mean, yes, but everyone else does too, apparently. That was what was so great about it. Thanks for doing that. So can you reveal anything, if there's a 2025 event, anything, I mean, will it be significantly different in any way? Or are you thinking it's more like little tweaks here and there that you see as potential ways to improve on 2024? So
I've got some incredible feedback, and at the end of the day, it's all about the experience to me and the decisions I was making, just a couple of weeks out before the summit. It was like, will this improve the experience? Like I didn't have a workbook made or anything. I didn't have a printable schedule, and I was getting feedback in like, do you have anything like this? I'm like, no, it's going to add to the experience. Let's get it done. So invested in that, and it was so well received. So at the end of the day, I'm like, how can I improve the experience? And looking at some of the sessions, like the most popular sessions and the feedback I got on some of the sessions, like for example, the upgrade gave you access to the live panels and the live events. And these were so well received. They're like, maybe want to make some of them free next time.
Yeah.
And people wanted more face-to-face interactions. And the Circle platform that I used, it was great. However, you could only see the speakers and the speakers speak. You can't see everyone's faces. So it didn't have that community feel like, you're on Zoom and you can see like dozens of faces at once.
Right.
And the one session we did have on Zoom, which had breakout rooms, Circle doesn't do breakout rooms yet. That was incredible. Everyone came very scared in like the first 5 minutes. They're like very timid and like, what the hell am I doing here? And then you have a breakout room. They all come back and they're smiling and grinning and the energy is there and people loved it. Right. So I'm thinking next time we can bring in live panels and more networking sessions and make the community even better and that experience better. And then it was 4 days before, which was a lot. So it could be dropping down to 3. I don't know. Just to focus on that and having better relationships with some of the speakers. So for this first summit, I had a lot of prior relationships because of the podcast that we would run and, just people I followed online and respected and want to get them on stage. But for next time, kind of want to go outside the network a little bit and branch out more But the problem with that is you don't have relationships with the speakers, and those relationships are integral to promoting the event, because if they don't really know you too well and there's no connection there, they're not necessarily going to promote too much. So those relationships are so important. So I think for next time, I would spend more time building up that relationship and talking through the promotional materials and how to market, because I did this through email, as you would have received many emails, Rob. And I think next time I'll just get on a call with every speaker to go through things, making that face-to-face connection, explaining things, make sure they understand. Because some speakers, they know marketing very well and they get it. Others, they have huge audiences, but they may be too busy and they just don't get things done. So it's just like, if you have that face-to-face relationship, there's a connection, and it's more likely that they'll commit and do things and understand. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what I'd do differently.
Yeah, that's a great pointer for anyone who's listening, who's trying to do any kind of event. I wonder how many people who run, I don't know, maybe they all do this, who run events or things like this, whether they're online or in person, schedule calls in advance just to kind of get to know each other and build a little bit more rapport. That's a really good idea.
I'll definitely do that more. And it's hard. It takes time and it's a lot more investment, but I believe that you'll get better results because you have that better rapport and connection.
Right.
So, and that's why people don't do it. It takes time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It reminds me of working on that Designing Brand Identity book. So much of that was about, it's not the reason I did it, but kind of an outcome of doing that is just getting on calls like this and having conversations with designers and strategists and all kinds of experts all over the world. And it became,
yeah, you must be one of the most connected authors out there, with like the amount of work and quotes and input that's come into that book, mate. Your Rolodex must be
well. I'll be honest, some of it did just happen through email, and it's for exactly the reason you just said, just expediency. And similar to your experience with the summit, it's like this massive spreadsheet of, page 172, we need a new quote about X, like let's contact this person and see if they can weigh in on it. And so sometimes that is just an email because we both have day jobs and, we're up against deadlines. But to the extent that you can get on calls and have a conversation with someone, that's really the enjoyable part. And I think to your point, you get better results, whether results means, a speaker who really markets the hell out of the summit or just somebody who puts more effort into the presentation they're giving or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that. So those are some of the main takeaways. For the granular details, as you mentioned, on Chris's podcast, I get into the weeds. And if you're going to run a summit, you'll definitely want to listen to that, because there's so many invaluable things you can learn from people who've experienced it before, and the learnings. Like, I spent a lot of time reflecting to get those takeaways and those outcomes, to understand what can be done better, what went well, what didn't, and so forth. So it's a really big part of anything, I think, is reflection, which we often don't do.
Yeah, a good point. You mentioned at the beginning that when you were first thinking about this, you were talking to Matt, your co-host on the Just Branding podcast, and it sounded like you were at least thinking about toying with the idea of something in person, which would have been difficult given how far away from each other you live and work. But in the future, is there a part of you that thinks you might want to make part of the Brand Builders Summit in person or do something else that would have an in-person element?
Yeah, never say never. I think it would be better to do it in the UK, just because a lot of our audience are there and there's more people versus Australia. It's very far away and we have a much smaller population here. We often talk about it, and one day it will happen. I don't know when, but I reckon if it doesn't happen in person, there may be something else. I don't know. Okay. Never say never.
Yeah, that sounds, well, I hope you get to do that. For now, we'll be satisfied with Brand Builders Summit. 2024 was a massive success. We have hopes, but no guarantees for a 2025 event. And it was great to hear a little bit about what you have in store for us. I know people can go to justcreative.com and follow you at Just Creative. Is there anywhere else that people should look you up online just to keep track of all those various things that you're dipping your toes into?
Yeah. So brandbuildersummit.com, you can join the waitlist for 25 if it happens.
Fingers crossed.
Justcreative.com is my main site and all my handles are on there. I do want to mention on Just Creative, there is a free branding bundle. It's called the Branding Briefcase. And inside is a bunch of downloads and freebies for branders, designers, strategists, everything from logo inspiration to strategy questions to sales conversations to like mock-ups. It's all for free in exchange for an email, and I'd love to connect with you.
Great. Yeah, I highly recommend that bundle. I've downloaded it. So encourage anyone listening to go check that out. Follow Jacob online and attend the 2025 summit if it happens. Thanks so much, Jacob, for joining. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you, Rob. And thank you for your generous contributions as well, your presentation and sharing and long-time friendship online. It's I appreciate it. Oh, and for the book feature as well, Sam brand logo, and that was awesome. So thank you.
My pleasure. Good to talk to you. Talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to How Brands Are Built. If you liked the episode, please leave a rating and review and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Jacob and his work, visit justcreative.com. You can also go to brandbuildersummit.com to join the waitlist for 2025. During our chat, Jacob mentioned Summit in a Box, which is a product of Krista Miller's. You can learn more at summitinabox.co. And Jacob will be appearing on Krista's podcast, Summit Host Hangout, sometime in 2025. So if you want to hear Jacob go even more into the weeds on how he pulled off a successful Brand Builder Summit, check out that episode. That book feature that Jacob mentioned right at the end of our conversation is, of course, Designing Brand Identity. Some of his work is featured in the 6th edition, which I co-authored with Alina Wheeler. That's available on Amazon now. How Brands Are Built is a production of Heirloom Agency. Our theme music is by Isha Erskine Project. I'm Rob Meyerson, and I'll talk to you next time.